The classroom went silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Every pair of eyes stared at the doorway, where a tall woman stood with her arms crossed and a look on her face that made even the boldest kid shrink. Her eyes were fixed on the group of students still laughing. And beside her, holding her hand tightly, was the girl they had mocked, the one whose curls they had touched without permission, pulled, poked, and joked about. "Which one of you," the woman said slowly, her voice sharp like breaking glass, "thought it was funny to make fun of my daughter's hair?" No one answered. Not even the bullies. Especially not them. The air felt heavy. The teacher froze too, halfway between her desk and the board, unsure of what to do. The entire class just stared as the woman walked forward, her footsteps loud in the quiet room. She stopped right at the front, looked directly at the main bully, a boy who always thought he ruled the whole school, and she took a breath as if she was about to reveal something none of them were ready for. But before she could speak, something unbelievable happened. And at that exact moment, the lights flickered, someone screamed, and the room exploded into chaos. Everything after that became a blur. Here we tell stories of strength, love, and redemption, where every struggle hides a deeper meaning. Stay inspired and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories. But before we get to what happened next, let's go back to how this all began. Before all the shouting, before the fear, before the lights and the scream, there was a girl named Amara. She was 10 years old, quiet but smart, kind but shy, and she loved her hair more than anything in the world. Her mom always told her, "Your hair is your crown. Don't ever hide it." And Amara never did. Her hair was big, curly, springy, and full of life, just like she wanted to be. But some kids didn't understand. Some kids thought different meant funny. Some kids thought teasing made them cool. And the worst of them was Zara and her crew, Mina and Jax. They weren't scary in the way villains are scary. They were something worse, confident. Confident that no one could stop them. Confident that the world belonged to them. That Monday morning the sun was bright. The school hall smelled like new books and pencil shavings, and Amara walked in with a smile on her face, her curls bouncing around her shoulders. She had no idea trouble was already waiting. The moment she stepped into class, she heard Zara whisper loudly, "There goes the walking bush." Mina laughed. Jax smirked. A few other kids giggled because they always followed whoever seemed powerful. Amara pretended she didn't hear. She pretended it didn't sting. She pretended she didn't feel her heart squeeze a little. She went to her seat, took out her books, and drew tiny butterflies in the corner of her notebook. Drawing always made her feel safe. But Zara didn't plan to stop. When the teacher stepped out for a meeting, the bullies walked straight to her desk. "Why is your hair so big?" Mina asked, reaching out to touch a curl. "Yeah," Jax added, poking one coil like it was something strange. "Does it grow by itself?" "Like a plant." Amara pulled back. "Please don't touch my hair." But that only made them laugh more. Zara smiled in a way that wasn't friendly at all. "We're just trying to understand what's happening on your head." "It's hair," Amara whispered. "But it's weird hair," Zara replied. A few kids nearby looked uncomfortable, but none of them said anything. Some didn't want to get involved. Some didn't know what to say. Some were scared of Zara. Some thought it wasn't their business. But one person was listening, watching, paying attention. In the hallway, passing by the door, the old school janitor, Mrs. Amani, paused. She had silver hair tied in a scarf, warm brown skin, and wrinkles around her eyes that showed she smiled a lot. But she did not smile now. She frowned, listening to every word. She had seen things like this before. Too many times. But she didn't speak yet. She kept walking, broom in hand, shaking her head slowly. Back in the classroom, Zara grabbed a handful of Amara's curls and tugged them hard enough to make her eyes water. "Stop!" Amara cried. "Oh look," Mina laughed. "Her hair fights back. It's like a jungle." The class erupted in giggles. Small ones, nervous ones, guilty ones. And then something inside Amara broke. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a small, painful crack in her heart. She ran out of the classroom, tears falling fast. And for a moment Zara and her gang seemed satisfied. But they should not have been. Because what they didn't know was that Amara's mother, Mrs. Kemi, was already on her way to the school. Earlier that morning, while Amara walked to school, Mrs. Kemi had gone to the market. She planned to buy vegetables for dinner and surprise Amara with her favorite meal, okra soup. But halfway through the market, she felt her phone buzz. A message from the teacher. Unexpected. Unusual. Please come to school when you can. It's about Amara. She didn't wait. She didn't shop. She didn't think twice. She rushed to the school immediately, her heart beating fast. She didn't know what happened, but she knew her daughter. Amara didn't cause trouble. She avoided it. So if the teacher needed a meeting, something must be wrong. When Mrs. Kemi arrived, she asked for Amara's class. The teacher wasn't inside. She had stepped out earlier. So Mrs. Kemi opened the door, and that was when she saw it. She saw the look on her daughter's face. Red eyes. Tears. Hurt. She saw the bullies laughing, touching her hair, mocking her, treating her crown like it was nothing. And the mother inside her, the lioness she kept quiet most days, rose up strong and fierce. But now, let's return to the classroom where the story began. After Mrs. Kemi's entrance, the room froze. Her voice shook the air. Zara swallowed hard. Jack stared at his shoes. Mina wished she could disappear. And then, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. A cold wind rushed through the windows even though they were closed. Someone screamed from the back of the class. Kids jumped from their seats. Others grabbed their bags. Papers flew everywhere. Then, before anyone even understood what was happening, the classroom door slammed shut on its own. Everyone gasped. And that was when something even worse happened. Something no one expected. Something that changed the entire room. The old janitor, Mrs. Amani, appeared at the doorway, her face pale, her hands shaking, and she said 8 words that made every child in that room go still. Don't move. She's not alone in here. And with that, the classroom became so quiet that even the sound of breathing felt loud. Mrs. Amani stood frozen in the doorway, her broom still in her hand, her eyes wide with fear. Her voice echoed in the room as everyone stared at her. Don't move, she repeated, barely above a whisper. She's not alone in here. Kids looked around in confusion. Who wasn't alone? Who else was here? Zara, Mina, and Jax clung to each other, their pride gone. The teacher stepped back, unsure of what was happening. The lights flickered once more, soft but strange, as if something invisible was brushing against the wires. Then suddenly the wind stopped. The lights steadied. The room fell still again. For a moment nothing happened. But that moment felt long and heavy, like the whole world was holding its breath. Mrs. Kemi didn't look afraid. She stepped forward and asked, "What do you mean she's not alone?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Mrs. Amani swallowed hard and pointed to the back of the classroom. "Something followed your daughter here. I felt it when I walked by earlier." A wave of whispers filled the room. Kids hugged their desks. A few cried quietly. Amara stood close to her mother and whispered, "Mom, what is she talking about?" Mrs. Kemi gently rubbed her daughter's back. "Don't worry, I'm here." But she didn't take her eyes off the janitor. Then, just as suddenly as the fear began, Mrs. Amani straightened up. Her hands stopped shaking. Her face softened. "I think," she said quietly, taking a deep breath, "I think whatever it was, it's gone now." A sigh of relief spread through the class. Kids relaxed a little. Someone dropped a pencil. Someone else laughed nervously. Zara was the first to speak, trying to act brave again. "See? It was nothing. The lights just blinked. That happens all the time." But her voice cracked and everyone heard it. Mrs. Kemi turned to her, eyes burning like fire. "Nothing? You think bullying my daughter is nothing?" Zara froze. Mina and Jack stepped back from her, like they didn't want to be connected to the trouble anymore. The teacher quickly stepped between them. "Let's all calm down. I'm sure we can talk this out." "No," Mrs. Kemi said firmly. "We are not brushing this away. I want to know exactly what happened. Every detail." She placed a hand on Amara's shoulder. "Tell me." Amara looked at her classmates, at the teacher, at Zara, at the floor. Her voice trembled, but she spoke. "They touched my hair," she said softly. "They laughed at me. They said my hair was weird. They called it a bush. They pulled it. They hurt me." A few kids looked down, ashamed that they had laughed or stayed silent. Mrs. Kemi's jaw tightened. "Who touched you?" Zara tried to step back, but the room was too small to hide in. I didn't mean, Zara began. You did, Mina interrupted, scared. You said to do it. Why would you tell the truth? Zara hissed at her. Jax lifted his hand halfway. I touched it too, but she pulled my hand away. Mrs. Kemi's voice shook with anger. My daughter told you to stop. But you didn't stop. Zara swallowed hard. We were just joking. A joke is only funny if everyone is laughing, Mrs. Kemi said. Was my daughter laughing? Zara said nothing. Mrs. Amani cleared her throat. Children, there's something important you all need to understand. Cruelty always calls something dark to itself. The moment you mock someone, you open a door you cannot see. You let something unkind slip in. The kids listened, really listened. And sometimes, she continued, that unkind thing follows you. That's what I felt earlier. The class shivered. Even Mrs. Kemi looked at her with concern. Are you saying? I'm saying, Mrs. Amani replied softly, that the energy in this room changed because of what happened. Pain calls out. Hurt calls back. That's why the lights flickered. The adults exchanged looks. The kids didn't fully understand. But everyone felt the chill. The teacher tried to bring calm. Maybe we should all take a break. Everyone step outside and get some air. But before anyone could move, Amara gently tugged her mother's hand. Mom, she whispered. I don't want to leave. Mrs. Kemi knelt down. Why, sweetheart? Because if I leave, they might laugh again tomorrow. Her voice cracked. Tears filled her eyes again. The room fell silent. Kids shifted uncomfortably. Some felt guilty. Some looked away. Some wished they had said something earlier. Zara looked down at her shoes. For the first time she looked small. Small and unsure. Mrs. Kemi hugged her daughter softly. You are brave, Amara. And your hair is beautiful. Never forget that. A warm silence filled the room for a moment. A few kids nodded at Amara. A few even smiled gently. The teacher whispered, She's right. It looked like the tension was finally fading. But just when things seemed calm, a loud thud shook the roof. Everyone jumped. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then another thud. And another. Boom, boom, boom. It sounded like heavy footsteps walking on the roof. Kids grabbed their desks. The teacher gasped. Mrs. Kemi pulled Amara close. Zara screamed. Mrs. Amani looked up with fear in her eyes. Oh no, she whispered. It followed after all. A long crack formed across the ceiling. Dust poured down. Plaster flaked off. The lights flickered wildly. Someone, or some presence was walking above them. And then, the ceiling began to break. The entire class screamed. Screams filled the classroom as the crack in the ceiling widened. Dust rained down like gray snow, covering desks and hair. The sound above them grew louder, heavier, like something big was pacing across the roof. Boom, boom, boom. The final stomp made the lights flicker wildly. Then the ceiling dipped inward, bending like soft cardboard. Everyone get back, the teacher shouted. But the kids were already scrambling, falling over chairs, holding onto one another. Zara, who always acted brave, hid behind Mina, shaking. Jax covered his head with both hands and crouched next to a desk. Mrs. Kemi pulled Amara under a table. Stay close to me. Mrs. Amani stepped forward instead of stepping back. She raised her broom toward the ceiling as if she could stop it from falling. Don't come down here, she shouted at the unseen force. You don't belong in this place. The lights sparked again, then buzzed loudly. A crack of thunder exploded from above, even though the day was clear outside. Then, just when it looked like the ceiling might break open, everything stopped. The pounding, the flickering, the shaking. It ended as suddenly as it started. The room froze in silence once again. Dust slowly drifted down. A piece of plaster clinked gently onto the floor. Someone sniffled. Someone whispered, Is it gone? No one dared to breathe loudly. Mrs. Amani lowered her broom. Her hands trembled, but her voice stayed steady. It's gone for now. The class exhaled in one long wave of relief. Kids crawled out from under tables, brushing dust off their clothes. The teacher wiped her forehead and checked for injuries. No one was hurt, just scared. Jax whispered. What was that? Zara answered in a shaky voice. Not my fault, right? I didn't call it. No one replied. Mina wrapped her arms around herself. Are we safe? For the moment, Mrs. Imani said. But something entered this school through the pane in this room. Something that should not be here. Amara clung to her mother, her voice small. Mom, did I bring something bad? No, baby, Mrs. Kemi said with a soft but fierce tone. Hurt doesn't follow innocent people. It follows those who cause it. Her eyes drifted to the bullies. Zara felt her stomach twist. Mina lowered her head. Jax kicked at the floor with guilt. The teacher raised her hands. All right, everyone. Sit down. We need to calm ourselves and understand what's happening. Slowly, shakily, the kids returned to their seats. The room still felt tense, like invisible fingers were pressing against the walls. No one talked. No one giggled. Even the air felt different, colder somehow. Mrs. Imani stood near the doorway, broom in hand like a guard. Children, have any of you ever seen a shadow that wasn't yours? Or felt someone walking behind you when no one was there? A few hands rose slowly. Mostly kids who stayed quiet in class. Kids who paid attention to small things. Amara lifted her hand too. Zara didn't. She stared at her desk, too afraid to move. Mrs. Imani nodded. These things happen when unkindness becomes a habit. When cruelty grows too strong, it calls something dark. Something that listens. Mina whispered. But the ceiling, it almost broke. Darkness is heavy, Mrs. Imani replied. It doesn't travel lightly. The teacher sighed. We should call the principal. And maybe close the classroom for today. Yes, Mrs. Kemi said, her voice calmer now. And I need to talk to the parents of whoever bullied my daughter. Zara flinched. Jack stared wide-eyed. Mina's lips trembled. But instead of shouting or crying, Amara stepped forward. I don't want them to be punished too hard, she said quietly. Everyone in the room turned to look at her. Zara blinked. You don't. Amara shook her head. No. I want them to stop. I want them to be kind. I don't want anyone else to feel how I felt. It was quiet again, but not a scared quiet this time. This quiet felt heavy with shame and something else, respect. The teacher placed a gentle hand on Amara's shoulder. That's very brave of you. Mrs. Kemi looked proud, though she still watched the bullies with sharp eyes. Zara stared at the floor. I didn't know it hurt you like that. You didn't want to know, Mrs. Imani said simply. Zara swallowed. Mina wiped her eyes. Jax didn't speak. Amara held her mother's hand tightly again. Can we go home? Please. We will, Mrs. Kemi said softly. But I need to make sure everything is safe. The tension in the room slowly faded. Kids whispered softly now, talking about what had happened. Some were comforting each other. Some were still scared, but the panic had settled. A gentle knock came at the classroom door. It was only the teacher's assistant, Mr. Tom. He had glasses that always slid down his nose and a kind smile. He poked his head in and asked, Is everyone okay? I heard shouting and, Oh my goodness, what happened to the ceiling? A small incident, the teacher said. We're managing it. Mr. Tom looked worried. Do you all want to move to another classroom for now? That would be best, the teacher replied. The kids slowly began packing their bags. Amara gathered her things neatly. Zara rushed, her hands shaking. Mina and Jax whispered nervously to each other. For a moment peace seemed to return. But peace did not last. Just as the class began walking toward the door, Amara stopped suddenly. Her body stiffened. Her eyes widened in fear. She pointed to the back of the classroom, right at the cracked ceiling. Mom, she whispered. Look. Everyone turned. A dark shape oozed through the crack, slow and smoky like a shadow melting out of the ceiling. It wasn't a person. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't anything they knew. But it had eyes. Two small glowing eyes in the middle of the black fog. Zara screamed. Mina dropped her bag. Jack stumbled backward. Even the teacher gasped. Mrs. Imani took a step forward, her broom shaking. No, she whispered. It's growing. The shadow stretched longer, darker and thicker, spreading across the ceiling like a spill of darkness. A cold wind blew through the room again. The lights flickered. Amara clung to her mother's arm. And as the shadow lowered itself from the ceiling, the classroom door slammed shut once more. locking everyone inside. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring and emotional stories like this. The classroom door slammed shut so hard it rattled the windows. Every child screamed at once. The lock clicked loudly, trapping everyone inside. The shadow on the ceiling grew thicker, spreading like dark paint, dripping down the cracked plaster. Its glowing eyes flickered like tiny flames. Amara held tightly to her mother. "Mom, it's coming." Mrs. Kimmy shielded her with both arms. "Stay behind me." The teacher backed up until she hit her desk. Mr. Tom grabbed the doorknob and pulled with all his strength, but it didn't budge. "It's locked. Something is holding it from the other side," he shouted. "Or from this side," Mrs. Imani whispered. The shadow stretched downward, reaching like long fingers trying to touch the floor. Cold air rushed across the room. Papers flew. Chairs slid. Zara, Mina, and Jack scrambled behind the teacher, crying openly now. Mrs. Imani stepped forward instead of back. She held her broom tightly like a sword. "This is not your place," she warned the shadow. "You were not called to harm children." The shadow pulsed. The glowing eyes blinked. Boom! The lights went out for one long second. When they flickered back on, the shadow was inches lower. Amara gasped. Jax fell onto his knees, shaking. Is it here because of us?" No one answered. The classroom walls creaked. The shadow stretched even more, bending toward Zara, who screamed and ducked. Mrs. Imani's voice rose. "I said enough." She slammed her broom on the floor. The shadow froze. The cold air stopped. The lights steadied. For a second it felt like the danger had paused. Mrs. Kimmy pulled Amara close. "We need to get everyone out of this room now." The teacher nodded quickly. "Kids, move to the other side of the room, away from the crack." Slowly and shaking, the class moved together. Zara dragged Mina with her. Jack stumbled after them. The shadow remained in the center of the ceiling, still like it was confused. "Good," Mrs. Imani whispered. "It is thinking." "Thinking about what?" the teacher asked. "About who it belongs to," the janitor answered. A shiver ran through the room. But then the classroom fell silent again. And for a moment nothing moved. That moment gave the kids time to breathe, to settle, to stop shaking long enough to think. Mr. Tom pressed his ear to the door. "I think I hear footsteps outside," he whispered. "Maybe help is coming." Several kids sighed with relief. Zara finally dared to speak. "Mrs. Imani, is that thing here because we were mean?" The janitor did not look at her. "Cruelty opens doors," she said. "Someone's pain opened a very big one today." Zara looked at Amara. Her eyes filled with guilt. I didn't think words could do something like this." Mrs. Kimmy replied sharply. "Words can do worse." Amara looked at the bullies, her face soft and innocent. Did you really think my hair was funny?" Zara's face crumbled. She shook her head fast. "No, I just liked when people laughed at my jokes. It made me feel important." "That wasn't a joke," Mina whispered. Jax rubbed his eyes. "We didn't know it hurt you so much." Amara swallowed. "It did." A heavy silence filled the air. Even the shadow seemed quieter, almost listening. The tension softened. Fear didn't disappear, but it dropped low enough for everyone to think more clearly. Then something unexpected happened, something gentle. A small hand reached out. It was Amara's. She offered it toward Zara. The entire class watched, stunned. Zara looked at the hand as if she wasn't sure she deserved to touch it. Her lips wobbled. Her eyes filled again. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am." Amara nodded. "I forgive you." It was quiet again, but this time the silence felt warm, comforting, human. The teacher wiped her eyes. Maybe this is what the room needed." Mrs. Imani nodded. "Kindness closes doors that cruelty opens." Everyone felt hope rise in the room. But hope didn't last long. Suddenly a loud crack echoed from the ceiling. Everyone looked up. The shadow twitched fast and sharp. Its glowing eyes blazed brighter. Then it uncurled itself like a long snake, snapping forward. The lights burst into darkness. Kids screamed. Chairs fell. The air turned freezing. Then, The shadow dropped from the ceiling like a dark waterfall. It hit the floor, then shot straight toward Zara. She didn't even have time to scream. The shadow wrapped around her legs like black smoke, pulling, dragging. Zara fell hard onto the floor, clawing at the tiles. "Help! Help me!" Mina screamed. Jax ran toward her, but the teacher grabbed him. Amara cried, "Zara!" Mrs. Kemi rushed forward, but the shadow yanked Zara back again, pulling her toward the corner of the room. "No!" Mrs. Imani shouted. She slammed her broom on the floor again, but this time the shadow didn't freeze. It only grew darker. It dragged Zara another inch. Another. Another. Her nails scraped the floor. Tears streamed down her face. "Please! Someone help me!" The shadow pulled harder. The lights flickered wildly. The cold grew sharper. The teacher screamed for help. Amara sobbed and pushed forward, but her mother held her back. The shadow pulled Zara up the wall now, as if gravity didn't matter, lifting her toward the cracked ceiling. Her scream echoed across the room. Zara's scream shook the whole classroom as the shadow dragged her higher and higher. Her feet kicked wildly, her hands reaching for anything she could hold. Her fingers scraped the wall, leaving faint white lines on the paint. Tears streamed down her face, dripping onto the floor below. "Please, help me!" she cried, her voice cracking. Mina and Jax cried too, frozen in fear. The teacher shouted for everyone to stay back, even though she herself didn't know what to do. The lights above flickered so fast they almost strobed like lightning. Amara grabbed her mother's arm. "Mom, do something!" Mrs. Kemi stepped forward, but Mrs. Imani blocked her path. "No," the janitor warned. "If you touch the shadow while it's this strong, it will grab you too. But Zara will fall." Amara shouted. The shadow pulled the girl up to the cracked ceiling, her shoes dangling inches from the plaster. Zara screamed again, voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean any of it. Please." Those words hit something inside Amara. Something gentle. Something brave. Without thinking, she broke free from her mother's hand and ran forward. "Amara!" Mrs. Kemi shouted. But it was too late. Amara was already standing directly under the shadow. She looked up at Zara, her eyes full of fear but also determination. "You said sorry," she said softly. "I heard you." The shadow twitched. Amara took a step closer. "You hurt me," she said. "But you didn't deserve this." The shadow let out a low hum, a sound that vibrated in everyone's bones. Amara lifted her small hand toward Zara, not touching the shadow, just reaching toward her. "You're not alone," she whispered. Zara's sobs slowed. Her breathing softened. Her fingers stretched toward Amara's hand, as if that tiny bit of kindness was a rope she could hold onto. The shadow's glowing eyes faded slightly. Mrs. Imani gasped. "It's weakening." The room went silent. Amara kept her hand raised. "Let her go. Please." The shadow twitched again, this time uncertain. And then, like smoke blown by a soft breeze, it loosened its grip. Zara slid down the wall slowly, shakily, until her feet touched the floor. The moment she did, she collapsed into Mina and Jax's arms. They hugged her tightly, all three crying. The shadow rose back into the cracked ceiling, smaller than before, like it had been pushed back by Amara's voice. Mrs. Imani pressed a trembling hand over her heart. Thank goodness. Kindness still has power. The whole class exhaled at once. The danger was not gone, but it was sleeping again. Waiting. Watching. Zara sobbed into her hands. "I thought it was going to take me. I thought." Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Amara kneeled next to her. "I know. And I forgive you." Zara shook her head. "You shouldn't." "But I do," Amara said. "Nobody deserves to be hurt like that. Not even someone who hurt me." The teacher wiped her eyes. "Amara, you're teaching us all something today." Mr. Tom finally managed to get the door unlocked. He swung it open with force. "Everyone out. Now, before anything else happens." The class rushed into the hallway, stumbling over each other but grateful to escape. Zara was weak, so Mina and Jax held her on both sides. Mrs. Kemi carried Amara, hugging her tightly. The hallway felt warmer, brighter, safer. But Mrs. Imani stayed behind for a moment, broom in hand, staring up at the cracked ceiling. The shadow's glowing eyes flickered one last time before disappearing into the darkness. She whispered, "This is not finished." Then she stepped out and gently closed the classroom door behind her. In the hallway, the students gathered in small groups. Some were crying. Some were whispering about what they had seen. Some kept staring back at the classroom door, afraid it might burst open again. Zara sat on a bench, shaking. Mina rubbed her back gently. Jack sat beside her, staring at his shoes. "I never meant for anything like this to happen," Zara said through tears. "I thought bullying was just words. Just jokes. I didn't know it could open something like that." Mina sniffed. "We shouldn't have done any of it." Jax nodded. "Amara didn't deserve it." Amara sat with her mother on the opposite side of the hallway. She kept glancing at them. "I want to go talk to them," she whispered. Mrs. Kemi paused. "Are you sure?" Amara nodded. "They look scared." Her mother sighed softly. "You have a good heart. Stay where I can see you." Amara walked over slowly. When she reached them, Zara stood up. Her face was red and swollen from crying. "I'm sorry," she repeated. "I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. I don't know why I said those things about your hair. I guess I just wanted people to laugh." Amara touched her curls gently. "Do you still think my hair is weird?" Zara shook her head. "No. It's beautiful. I just didn't want people to notice I was jealous." Amara blinked. "Jealous? Of what?" Zara wiped her nose. "Your hair is full. And big. And different. People notice you when you walk in. I wanted that. But instead of being nice, I was mean." Mina whispered. "We were all mean." Jax nodded. "We're sorry." Amara smiled softly. "It's okay. I'm glad you said it." For the first time, Zara smiled too. A small, tired smile. But a real one. The hallway felt calmer now. The fear had faded. The warmth of kindness spread slowly from one person to another, like a gentle light pushing away darkness. Even the teacher, watching from a distance, felt hope. But hope ended quickly. A sudden scream echoed from somewhere deeper in the school. It wasn't a kid's scream. It was an adult scream. A painful scream. Everyone froze. Mr. Tom looked around, fear returning instantly. Who was that? Then another scream. Louder this time. Coming from the direction of the staff room. Mrs. Imani's eyes widened. She gripped her broom tightly. "It's moving," she whispered. "The shadow, it left the classroom." The teacher gasped. "It's looking for another door," Mrs. Imani said. "Another person full of hurt. Another person it can cling to." Then silence. And in that silence, the fire alarm suddenly exploded into sound. Red lights flashed. Sirens wailed. Kids screamed. Teachers rushed into the hallway. And Amara, staring toward the staff room, whispered, "Something's wrong." If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring and emotional stories like this. The fire alarm screamed so loud it hurt everyone's ears. Red lights flashed across the hallway like angry eyes. The noise made the children cover their ears and cry. Teachers shouted, trying to calm everyone down, but the sound did not let them think clearly. "What is happening?" the teacher yelled. "Everybody stay together." Mrs. Kemi held Amara close. Amara trembled in her mother's arms. Zara sat on a bench with Mina and Jax beside her. All three of them still looked pale from the shadow in the classroom. Now the alarm added a new fear. Mr. Tom ran down the hall, his glasses sliding on his nose. "Staff room!" Someone shouted from the staff room. "We must go check. But be careful, do not go alone." The principal pushed through the crowd. His face was white and tight. "Lock the doors," he ordered. "Do not let anyone wander off. Wait for the teachers and stay in groups." Kids huddled in small circles, whispering. Some wanted to run outside, but teachers kept them where they were. The bell kept ringing and the siren sounded like a beast prowling the school. Mrs. Imani stood like a guard. Her broom felt heavy in her hands. She had that look in her eyes that said she had seen strange things before, but this was worse. This feeling crawled under her skin. From the staff room came a soft, strangled sound. Not quite a shout, not quite a sob. It made the hairs at the back of everyone's neck stand up. "Someone is hurt," Mr. Tom whispered. "We must help, but we must be careful." Mrs. Kimmy squeezed Amara's hand. "Stay with me," she said. "Do not let go." Amara nodded, but her eyes were wide like a frightened bird. She wanted to run back to the classroom where the shadow had been. She wanted to know if it was really gone. But the hallway felt heavy and wrong. The principal motioned two teachers to check the staff room. They moved slowly, their footsteps soft as if not to wake something. The door to the staff room hung open a crack, and a weak light showed inside. They peered in and then shouted, "All clear! Mrs. She's fine." A wave of relief went through most of the school, but it felt too quick, too thin. Mrs. Daniels, the teacher from the class next door, sat on a chair, shaking. Her face looked pale and stunned. "What happened?" the principal asked. He sounded scared but tried to be firm. Mrs. Daniels could not speak for a few seconds. Then she croaked, "I heard someone crying. Someone in the corridor. I went to check." The lights, they flickered and a shadow moved past the window. It looked like smoke, but it had eyes. It slid past the lockers and then it touched the wall. I felt cold run through me and I nearly fainted. The staff whispered among themselves. The principal's jaw tightened. He looked at Mrs. Imani and Mr. Tom, searching for an answer. Mrs. Imani rubbed her hands together slowly. "It travels where pain and meanness come from. It finds open doors. It looked for one and found this place." Jack swallowed. "So it left the classroom?" "Yes," the janitor said. "It left where cruelty was strong. It's looking for more." The principal stood very straight. "We will not let any child be alone," he said. "We will check every corridor, every room. No one goes outside. We lock all doors and keep children safe in pairs." Teachers moved quickly but quietly. They gathered children into groups and walked with them to a safer wing of the school, away from the cracked ceiling and the staff room. The air felt charged like before a storm. Amara walked with Mrs. Kimmy, but she kept looking behind her at the classroom door. She could not stop thinking about the shadow and its small bright eyes. She thought of Zara, lifted up by darkness. She thought of Amara's own small hand reaching out and making the shadow loosen. The principal called for calm, but he needed to decide fast. He asked the janitor to come with him and Mr. Tom to check the rooftop and the back stairwell. If the shadow had walked on the roof, they had to find out how it moved. Mrs. Imani nodded and grabbed her broom. Mr. Tom grabbed a flashlight. The principal took a radio and a big key ring to unlock doors. As they walked down a tile corridor, the air felt colder. The lights buzzed. The tiles on the floor creaked like someone walking just out of sight. The group slowed, listening. "Listen," Mrs. Imani whispered. "Hear that?" First no one heard anything. Then, a soft dragging sound came from the music room farther down the hall. It was the tiniest noise, like fabric being pulled slowly across the floor. They moved toward the sound. The teacher who led them felt a chill run up her arms. Amara wanted to run on, but Mrs. Kimmy held her close. When they reached the music room door, they saw the window curtains moving though there was no wind. The piano bench was pushed to one side. On the floor near the window were black smudges like soot, but they were soft and felt cold when Mr. Tom touched them with the edge of his glove. "It's been here," he said softly. "It moved through this room." The principal picked up one of the smudges on his finger and frowned. It left no mark on his skin, no dust. It felt like a whisper had touched him. They backed away slowly. As they walked, the radio from the principal sounded a crackle and then a voice said, "Please, everyone return to the main hall. Stay together." The radio cut out. Suddenly, the lights in the music room blinked out and back on. Then all the hall lights went for a second. When they returned, the smudges were gone. Everyone froze. Mrs. Imani closed her eyes for a moment. "It is not only looking for pain," she said in a small voice. "It likes fear. When we show fear, it grows stronger. But kindness hurts it." Amara remembered how she reached for Zara. Her chest swelled with a small burst of courage. She wanted to say something, but her mouth felt dry. From the end of the hall, a soft cry came. It was not a child. It sounded like a grown man's voice, far away, broken. They followed the sound to the art room. The door was open. Inside, an old coat lay on the floor. Paint jars trembled but had not spilled. On the far wall, someone had scrawled with a shaky hand a single short message. "Help." The principal's voice shook now. We must get everyone safe. Move them to the gym. Lock the doors. And someone call the district office. Tell them not to send parents yet. Teachers ran to the classrooms to gather children. Mr. Tom stayed with the principal and Mrs. Imani to sweep the corridors for signs. As they checked the last door near the back stairs, a gust of cold air strobed across their faces. The bulb above the door popped and went dark. Then every radio in the principal's hand burst to life with a sound no one wanted to hear. A low, long moan that seemed to come from all the vents at once. The moan wrapped around their ears and went down into their bones. And from the stairwell below came one more sound. A slow, heavy step. It was the last thing they expected to hear. A step. Then another. Closer. Closer. And then very near the stairwell, someone cried out in a voice that made the blood run cold. It's coming up the stairs. The voice echoed from the bottom of the stairwell, sharp and scared, bouncing up the walls like something chasing it. Everyone froze where they stood. Mr. Tom, the principal, Mrs. Imani, and even the children in the hallway who had not yet been moved to the gym. Amara felt her heart jump into her throat. Zara grabbed Mina's hand tightly. Jax pressed his back against the wall like he wished he could melt into it. Mrs. Kimmy stepped in front of Amara protectively. Stay close, she whispered, though her own voice shook. The stairwell grew quiet. Too quiet. Then another heavy step. Slow. Dragging. Like a foot trailing through thick mud. Mr. Tom swallowed hard. Everyone moved back. Move slowly. But the principal held up a hand. Wait. He leaned toward the stairwell door, just enough to listen. His hands trembled around the radio. The hall lights flickered again, just for a breath. But it was enough to make everyone shrink in fear. Mrs. Imani closed her eyes, gripping her broom tighter. It feeds on fear, she whispered. Do not let it grow. But no one knew how to stop fear in a moment like this. Another step echoed. Louder. Then a weak voice floated up, cracking with pain. Help please. Everyone gasped. That's a person. Amara cried before she could stop herself. Mrs. Kimmy quickly pulled her closer, shaking her head. We don't know who it is. But Amara was sure. That voice didn't sound like the shadow. The shadow didn't sound human. This voice trembled like someone scared, someone hurt. The principal straightened. We can't leave someone down there. I'll go. No. Mr. Tom grabbed his arm. We should stick together. But it was too late. The principal had already pushed the door open and stepped onto the first stair. The stair groaned under his weight. The air was thick and cold, like the stairwell belonged to another world. He looked back at them. I'll shout if I need help, he said. He started down. The door closed behind him. Everyone waited. Seconds stretched long, slow, and painful. No one breathed. 1 second. 5 seconds. 10. Then, a scream. Sharp. Cut short. Followed by a terrible thud. Mrs. Imani gasped. We must go now. She didn't wait for anyone to argue. She grabbed Amara, Zara, Mina, and Jax and hurried them down the hall toward the gym. Mrs. Kimmy, shaking but determined, ran beside them, looking back again and again. Mr. Tom stayed by the stairwell door, torn between fear and duty. Tom! Mrs. Imani called. Leave it. Come. But Mr. Tom didn't move. I can't leave him, he whispered. He trusted me. He pulled the stairwell door open and disappeared inside. No, Mina cried, reaching for him. But he was gone. The door swung shut. Mrs. Imani's face twisted with fear, anger, and something older. Something that understood shadows more than any of them. We cannot help him now, she said. But we can protect you children. Move. The hall shook suddenly, as if something hit the walls below. The lights flickered again. A low growl floated up through the vents, soft but chilling. What if Mr. Tom? Zara began, tears in her eyes. Mrs. Imani shook her head. Do not think of that now. The children ran, stumbling over their own shoes as they followed the janitor and Amara's mother. Their breaths came fast and shaky. The school no longer felt like a school. It felt like a maze that wanted to keep them in. When they reached the gym doors, 2 teachers were waiting, ushering students inside. The gym was crowded with children huddled in groups, some sobbing, some whispering to calm each other. Everyone in, one teacher called. Mrs. Kimmy guided Amara inside. Zara, Mina, and Jax trailed behind her like ducklings. Mrs. Amani stayed at the doorway, broom ready, scanning the hall for movement. Inside the gym, mats were spread on the floor. Teachers tried to keep order, but the room buzzed with fear. Some kids clung to each other. Some stared at the exit doors as if any second the shadow might slide in. Amara felt her knees shaking. She sat down beside Zara. Mina curled into her lap, shaking. Jax sat cross-legged, staring at the floor, trying hard not to cry. "I don't like this," Zara whispered. "Why won't anyone tell us what's happening?" Maybe they don't know," Amara said softly. Mrs. Kimmy sat beside them, placing her hands on their backs. "Listen to me," she said gently. "We are together. That is what matters. We will get through this." Then the gym's PA system crackled. Everyone froze. A static sound hissed through the speakers. Then a faint voice came through. First it sounded normal. Then it didn't. "Children, come." The voice stretched unnaturally, like someone pulling a word apart. A few younger kids started crying. Even the older ones whimpered. Mrs. Amani grabbed the nearest microphone control and yanked the cord from the wall. The speaker died instantly. But the damage was done. Fear thickened the air. One teacher whispered to another, "It's spreading." Another said, "We need to evacuate. This place isn't safe." A loud bang hit the gym doors. Everyone screamed. Another bang. This one harder. The doors shuddered. Mrs. Amani stepped in front of the children, broom raised, eyes blazing. "Stand back," she shouted. The banging stopped. Silence. Then, a small voice called from the other side of the door. "Hello? Is someone in there?" "It's me." Everyone whispered at once. "Who is that? Is it a student? Maybe it's Mr. Tom." But Amara's heart turned to ice, because she knew that voice. Her eyes widened in shock and confusion. That sounds like," she whispered. She didn't finish. The voice spoke again, gentler this time, almost singing. "Let me in. I'm lost." Zara grabbed Amara's hand. "Amara, don't say anything." But the voice called her name next. The entire gym went silent. Amara opened the door. Her mother's arms tightened around her. "How does it know your name?" Mina whispered. Bang. The door bent inward slightly. Another bang. Harder. A crack formed in the metal. Children screamed. Teachers backed away. Mrs. Amani tried to push a table in front of the doors, but the force from behind was too strong. Bang. Crack. Something on the other side dragged its fingers down the metal, making a long, slow screech that made everyone cover their ears. The voice spoke again, low and calm but wrong in every way. "Amara, I'm coming in." Amara felt the world tilt. And then, a giant dent exploded across the gym doors, pushing them almost off their hinges. The shadow had found the gym. The gym erupted into chaos. Children screamed, teachers shouted, and the metal doors groaned under the pressure of something unseen pushing from the other side. The lights flickered violently, throwing shadows across every face. Red emergency lights cast eerie glows across the terrified crowd. Mrs. Amani planted her broom firmly against the floor and stood in front of the children. "Back away from the doors," she commanded. "Stay together. Do not let it touch you." Amara clutched her mother's hand tightly. Her small fingers squeezed until they hurt, but she didn't let go. Zara, Mina, and Jax huddled close, shivering. Their eyes were wide, staring at the dented doors as if willing it to stop moving. Mrs. Kimmy knelt beside Amara, holding her close. "It won't get in," she said, though her voice shook. "We're together. That's what matters." The doors rattled again, sending a deafening screech through the gym. A cold wind blew from the gap, curling through hair and chilling every bone. Papers from the floor lifted and swirled around like tiny tornadoes. Every eye in the room followed the darkness pressing against the door. The shadow's voice came next, low, whispering like silk dragged across the floor. "Amara, let me in, you cannot hide." Amara trembled but forced herself to stand. She looked directly at the door. "No," she shouted. "You will not hurt anyone. You leave us alone." The shadow pulsed, almost like it understood her defiance. The banging stopped for a moment. Silence followed, heavy and tense, making everyone hold their breath. Mrs. Amani took a careful step forward. It listens, she said softly. It always listens. She pointed her broom at the dented doors. It can be fought. Not with fear but with courage. Amara looked up at her, understanding what she had to do. She stepped forward a little, taking Zara's hand. We won't let it hurt anyone, she said, voice shaking but clear. Not anymore. The shadow pressed harder against the door, the cold air intensifying, making children gasp. But Amara stood her ground. Her small bravery seemed to slow it for a moment. Mrs. Kimmy knelt beside her. Good girl, she whispered. Stay strong. You are not alone. Then something unexpected happened. A light began to spread from Amara's hand. Not bright enough to hurt anyone's eyes, but warm, comforting, steady. She hadn't realized she had moved her free hand upward, fingers trembling but raised like a beacon. Her courage, her forgiveness, her kindness. It all seemed to gather and shine. The shadow recoiled. It hissed, a terrible sound that filled the gym and crawled up everyone's spines. The dented doors shivered as if shaken by an invisible hand. The darkness outside twisted and flickered like smoke in a storm. Zara whispered, Amara, it's scared. Yes, Mrs. Imani said. Fear is what strengthens it. Courage and love are what weaken it. Amara clenched her jaw. You will not touch anyone, she shouted. Go away. Leave us alone. The shadow pulsed again, then thinned slightly. The banging decreased. The cold lessened. Children exhaled slowly, realizing for the first time that maybe, just maybe, they were safe. The principal stepped forward slowly, still holding the radio. Everyone stay calm. Don't leave your groups. We're going to be fine. Just stay strong. The lights stabilized. Red emergency lights dimmed. The papers stopped swirling. And then the shadow struck back. It surged through the gap in the doors like black water, coiling and twisting. The warmth from Amara's hand fought against it, but it still pressed forward. A loud crack split the air as the gym doors warped and buckled more. Children screamed again, diving behind teachers for protection. Amara held her hand high, her voice rising. I forgive you, but you cannot hurt anyone. Go away. The shadow hissed and recoiled from the words, pulsing violently. But it wasn't gone. Its glowing eyes flickered angrily in the gap between the warped doors. Mrs. Imani gritted her teeth. It fights because it is losing. Keep going, Amara. Amara's mother knelt beside her. We are with you, she said. Together we are stronger. Zara and the other children huddled together, holding hands. They whispered encouragements. Small words, quiet but full of strength. You can do it. You are brave. You are strong. The shadow recoiled again, and this time it hissed like wine through dry leaves. It thrashed against the doors, pressing forward one last time. But the combined courage, hope, and forgiveness from Amara and the others held it back. Then, with a sudden loud crack, the doors shuddered violently, and a beam of warm light from Amara's hand seemed to push the shadow back. It recoiled sharply, twisting upward like smoke being blown back into a chimney. The doors slammed fully shut, locking again with a solid thud. Silence followed. The children blinked, unable to speak at first. The air was warmer. The cold from before had vanished. The papers lay still. The shadow was gone. Amara lowered her hand slowly. Her body shook from exhaustion, but she was still standing. Mrs. Kemi scooped her up, hugging her tightly. You were amazing, Amara, she said, tears running down her face. Zara, Mina, and Jax gathered around, hugging each other and Amara. You saved us, Zara said softly. You really saved us. Mrs. Imani looked at the children, her broom resting on the floor. Remember this, she said, voice quiet but steady. Kindness is stronger than cruelty. Courage is stronger than fear. And love is stronger than darkness. The principal walked up slowly. We need to check everyone. Make sure everyone is safe. But I think it's finally gone. The children looked at one another. Exhausted, scared, but alive. Their hands still held together, forming a chain that seemed unbreakable. Amara smiled faintly at Zara. It's over for now. But the shadow, far away, had only retreated. Waiting. Watching. It was not gone forever. Somewhere in the dark corners of the school, it whispered, a low, soft sound that no one could hear clearly but that promised it would return. And the children, still holding hands, understood they had changed. They had faced fear and survived. They had learned the power of forgiveness, courage, and kindness in ways they could never forget. The gym slowly quieted. Teachers checked every corner, ensuring the children were unharmed. Mrs. Amani stayed a moment longer, staring at the closed doors, her eyes reflecting both relief and caution. Amara sat in her mother's lap, finally able to breathe. She looked at her friends and whispered, "We did it together." Zara nodded, tears on her cheeks. Together. Outside, the sun began to set. The school was quiet now, peaceful, almost normal again. But the memory of the shadow lingered in every corner, a reminder of what had been faced, and what might one day return. The children in the gym knew one thing clearly. They had survived the darkness. And as long as they stayed together, the darkness could never win. But even as they felt safe, a soft, almost invisible movement stirred in the cracked ceiling of their old classroom. Something shifted, low and slow, waiting for the perfect moment. The gym was quiet now. The red emergency lights had dimmed, leaving only the soft glow of the evening sun filtering through the high windows. The children sat in small clusters on the mats, still trembling, still holding on to one another, but slowly beginning to breathe freely again. Amara sat beside Zara, Mina, and Jax. Their hands were still joined, a silent promise that they would never be alone. Mrs. Kemi wrapped her arms around Amara and whispered, "You were so brave, my child. So very brave." Amara's small chest rose and fell, her body still shaking from the adrenaline. We did it," she said softly. "Yes," Zara replied, her voice raw but firm. "Because we stayed together. Because we didn't let fear take over." Mrs. Amani stepped forward, her broom resting beside her. She scanned the room, her eyes lingering on every child. "Remember this," she said quietly but powerfully. "It was not magic that saved you. It was your courage, your forgiveness, and your kindness. That is what pushed the darkness away." Amara looked up at her. "Even when it tried to hurt us?" she asked. Mrs. Amani nodded. "Even then. Fear gives it strength, but hearts that are brave and kind, those are stronger." The principal walked slowly into the center of the gym. His face was tired, but there was relief there too. "We will check every classroom before the children leave today," he said. "But I think it is finally safe." Suddenly, a faint whisper echoed through the gym. It was soft, almost like whine through a cracked window. Every child froze. Amara's heart jumped. She looked around, eyes wide. "Is it back?" Zara whispered, clutching Mina's hand. Mrs. Amani raised her hand. "It is not here," she said calmly. "It listens, yes, but it cannot come where courage and kindness are strong. Remember that. Fear is the only door it can slip through, and we have none left here." A slow, heavy knock came from the gym doors. Every child jumped, fear threatening to return. But the principal approached carefully, opening the door slightly. Outside, a teacher called, "All clear. The hallways are safe. No more signs of the shadow." Amara exhaled slowly. The danger had truly passed. The children began to whisper among themselves, some smiling faintly, some still pale but calmer. They hugged one another, realizing how close they had come to something they didn't even fully understand. Zara looked at Amara. I want to say thank you," she said. "I never knew being mean could create something so scary. Promise, I'll never mock anyone again." Mina nodded. "Neither will I. I don't want anyone to feel the fear I felt today," Jax added. We learned the hard way. But at least we learned." Amara smiled softly. "It's okay. Forgive you. We all just have to be kinder." Mrs. Kemi hugged her again, whispering, "Kindness is the strongest thing in the world. Never forget it." The teacher finally spoke. "We need to get everyone home safely. But before we do, I want each of you to remember one thing. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is acting in spite of it. Today, each of you was brave." The children nodded, absorbing every word. The fear that had gripped them earlier slowly faded, replaced by a quiet sense of pride and relief. Amara looked toward the doors of the gym and then back at her friends. I think we can go home now," she said. Mrs. Kemi nodded. "Yes, my dear. But we stay together. Always." The group slowly rose, helping one another along. Even the principal smiled faintly, a rare expression that showed both exhaustion and pride. As they walked down the hallway, Amara noticed the cracks in the ceiling of the old classroom. Her heart skipped a beat, but she reminded herself of Mrs. Amani's words. Courage, kindness, and forgiveness were stronger than fear. When they reached the main exit, the sun was low in the sky, painting the world outside in warm oranges and golds. The air felt fresh and safe. Children laughed softly, the tension of the day melting away. Zara paused, looking back at the school. I will never forget today, she whispered. Neither will I, Amara said. But we are stronger now. Mrs. Kimmy smiled. Yes, and you have shown that even the smallest act of kindness can defeat the darkest fear. The children lined up, ready to leave. Teachers and parents began to arrive, their faces a mix of relief and worry. But everyone knew that the true lesson of the day had been learned, not from lectures, not from punishments, but from courage and empathy. As Amara stepped into her mother's arms, she felt the warmth of safety and love. Zara, Mina, and Jax walked beside her, smiling faintly, holding hands as they promised silently to be kinder, braver, and more understanding. Mrs. Amani lingered a moment longer, looking up at the school. She felt the darkness that had haunted the hallways retreating, but she also knew it would never fully disappear. It would always wait for fear, for cruelty, for unkindness, but today they had proven it could be defeated. The janitor, Mr. Tom, appeared beside her, nodding silently. He had searched the school carefully after the shadow, ensuring no child or teacher remained in danger. Together they watched as the students left with their families, walking in groups, holding hands, and talking quietly about the strange, frightening day they had survived. Amara looked up at Mrs. Imani. Do you think it will ever come back? She asked softly. Mrs. Imani shook her head. Perhaps. But remember this. Wherever there is kindness, courage, and forgiveness, it has no power. You have learned the strongest lesson of all. Amara smiled faintly. Then we'll be ready. Zara reached out and took her hand again. Together, she said. Together, Amara echoed. The children walked into the fading sunlight, leaving the dark hallways behind. Their hearts were still full of fear, but now also of hope, understanding, and strength. And somewhere deep inside the cracked ceiling of the old classroom, the shadow stirred faintly. But it recoiled at the warmth of the day, at the courage and forgiveness the children had shown. It could wait, but it would not win. Not here, not now, not as long as hearts like Amara's and her friends existed. The school was quiet again. The air smelled like late summer impossibility. Children laughed softly, parents smiled in relief, and Amara held her mother's hand tightly. She knew deep down that the lesson of courage, empathy, and kindness would stay with her forever. The darkness had come. The fear had struck. But the light of brave hearts, the power of forgiveness, and the strength of friendship had conquered it. And in that moment Amara knew the truth. No shadow, no cruelty, no fear could ever match the power of love and kindness. The school was safe. The children were safe. And the future, no matter how uncertain, was theirs to shape with courage in their hearts. The sun set fully, casting long shadows behind them, but the light inside the children burned brighter than any darkness outside. It was the end of the day, the end of the shadow's visit, and the beginning of a new understanding of what bravery, empathy, and kindness could truly do. If you enjoy this story, subscribe to the channel for more emotional and inspiring stories.